This is Frankie Abbruzzino with the Uncensored Report. I want to talk a little bit today about propaganda and how mainstream media is complicit in utilizing propaganda to spread government, NGO, corporate beliefs, okay? The profession of journalism. You know, I run several news sites, and I'm always told you're not a journalist. Well, what makes a journalist? I went to school for 4 years at college. I didn't study journalism, but because they're working at mainstream media, they're journalists. Mainstream media journalism. You know, this is one toxic profession that broadcasts and disseminates disinformation to the masses, especially if it involves anything of political significance. Most of their stuff is well scripted out, basically pushing out the government line or the corporate propaganda, because most of these are owned by what, 6 major corporations own most of the media outlets out there. And you're seeing a video of Aleppo right now, because this comes into play when we talk about journalism and some of the examples and what George Orwell used to call news speak. The hacks. You know, we're witnessing one event after another where they go out and they describe the events, they report on the events in a nature that is not in line with reality a lot of the times. And it must be, we'll take Russia for example, and it's got to be obvious to a lot of us that Russia, whatever is going on, they're blaming Russia. They're being held responsible for just about everything that's occurring out there. I don't know when they became the big evil person that was out there. I thought the Cold War was over. It all started when we went in and funded the government, the people that in the overthrow of the government of Ukraine, because they would not sign on to the EU. Right about that time, Russia was becoming the big bad guy. They had forces in Ukraine, but nobody told them that it was due to a 96 agreement where they were allowed to have 20 or 30,000 forces in the Ukraine. And there's a lot of misinformation that they send out there. And this is due mainly to the fact that they are not backed by any factual evidence when they put out a lot of their information. They're no longer investigative journalists. They're talking boxes, talking heads. Because Russia, you know, we're supposed to know that Mr. Evil is at it again. In the West, we must rely on the forces to take down this tyrannical government that's out there. When you talk about Aleppo, we're seeing here, BBC went out and they reported that pro-Syrian Assad troops were in there raping and pillaging the people. The thousands were fleeing the massacre. That children were being killed in the streets by these ruthless Assad armies, backers. And it was all fictitious. How do I know it was fictitious? Because I watch international media, alt media. I look at everything that's coming out of there. And I was seeing the videos actually occurring. I actually came across videos too where they were busted trying to stage a horrendous act on a child and blame it on the Russians. And they're doing this to protect their geopolitical interests out there. Well, the West geopolitical interests. And anything that comes out of there is officially rubber stamped by our news press, our mainstream media whores out there. And that's why the Senate's out there trying to officially put across bills to basically say anyone that contradicts the information, the propaganda that we're trying to spit out there, our narrative, should be deemed fake news and being taken off the web, taken off the airway, not allowed to print anything. Especially when it surrounds Aleppo. We're seeing that in a tremendous amount right now. They're attempting to silence people, attempting to take away free speech. And that's one way, because what they've learned is that mainstream media has lost it, that they're 100% complicit in this, and the people are aware of it. These editors, they're out there. They're getting paid to lie. Project Mockingbird, where the CIA penetrated journalism and paid them to spread propaganda. For the politicians, for the corporate America. And I doubt people like the reporters with BBC, mainstream Western journalists, have ever even set foot in Aleppo. They don't have to. They got the propaganda machines working out there. They can sit behind a green screen, pretend they're in Aleppo, and spread their narrative, the government's narrative that they want out there. They're simply puppets singing the hymns of NATO. Whatever the EU and the United States want the public to hear. And the Syrian government, if you check around and look around, they were in there. And they actually recaptured the town with the support of Russia and Iran, something our government doesn't want you to hear and they don't want out there. They weren't out there trying to execute people. They weren't out there trying to rape people. They actually went out and liberated them, tried to get them drinking supply, water, medical supplies, and all that. ISIS was locking people in, trying to blame the Russians. But you don't hear any of that. And if you do hear it from people like myself, they're deemed fake news, and the people are like, oh, ABC said fake news. We can't listen to that. We can't believe that. The gods of news have brazenly gone off and said, this isn't serious news unless you listen to us. And that's because they're spooked by the fact that they're losing control of the people. They're losing control of the narrative. They've given out this feast of lies for so long. It's been absorbed by so many people, but now people are woken up. And what happened is that whole election process where WikiLeaks leaked everything woke up so many people to the fact that mainstream media is a propaganda, weaponized propaganda machine. I didn't realize it until I started doing the scoop, the Uncensored report. I used to sit there in front of the TV with the flicker rates and listen to whatever the news was spitting out as being the truth. But then when I started doing this and I started researching different elements, I found out they're propaganda. They're the fake news. Do they really seriously believe that they can go out there, the government, ban free speech, which they're deeming as fake news, impeach anyone that defies them? Anyone that says that Russia didn't hack the election, let's throw them into the gulag. Think about it, people. Wake up. And so what I've discovered is that when you look at places like Aleppo on the screen, is that now fake news is the real news, and the fake news is mainstream news. Because I'm telling you, fake news is in danger of being criminalized and held up as a traitor because they're not following the mainstream narrative that's out there that's being pushed by corporate America and government. And real journalism can only be found in a lot of discerning alternative media sites out there. Mainstream journalists who know and distort the truth in life and in death situations are complicit in crimes against humanity, essentially. Think about it. And a lot of people will sit there and say, oh, Russia, they're pushing the propaganda, which a lot of times I think. I'll sit there and I'll see ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox push out stuff, and I got to dissect through it and see, well, what's propaganda? What are they pushing for corporate America, for the government? Same with RT. Same with Rai out of Italy. You got to sit there and dissect through it all because there's going to be some propaganda that's being pushed. But once you look at it all, once you go to a lot of alternative news sites which do more of the investigative journalism out there, you find the truth. So don't sit in front of the TV with the flicker rates flickering away and just being fed propaganda and like a sheep just accepting it. This has been Frankie Abbruzzino with the Uncensored